Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Relieve Regret podcast. My name is Victoria Muir-Garcia, and I am one of your co-hosts, and I am joined by my lovely friend
Shadow Ball!
Shadow Ball. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you for being on this journey with us. We hope that it's as beneficial and helpful to you as it is to us as we actually
hmm
in real time release these regrets that we have.
Yep.
So let's do a check-in. How are you feeling, Shadow? Scale of 1 to 10.
Scale of 1 to 10 today, pretty solid, 8.5.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I'm like an 8.52.
Oh, amazing.
Not 8.52, 8.5 as
Oh,
well.
I get it. No, no, no. I think I'm 8.53
Oh, excuse
point
me.
7.
Yeah, hope. Hope is in the air for me.
Ooh, I like that.
Spring always brings hope. I
hmm
suffer so much in the winter with my seasonal affective disorder, and spring feels like it's just around the corner at the time that we're recording this. So
hmm
never underestimate the power of hope. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
Do you have a cause for applause?
I'm so glad you asked because I literally was going to bring up spring. I was walking Gertie in the music garden, which I'm very close to, the music garden where I live. And my favorite thing about the music garden here in Toronto is that, like, in the summer, it's so packed. Like, there are tons of people there. You can't really, like, get cool pictures or anything because of how many people are there. But in the winter, nothing. Not a, like you'll see like two other people walking their dog, clearly people from the neighborhood, maybe the odd tourist, but it's just a totally different experience. But this is the week where it starts changing.
Mm.
And you can literally see it on the ground. Like there's already a couple of little crocuses coming up and a couple of little like bushes that have some blooms and stuff. And like they're very small and they're like on the ground, but like because I go down there every week, I can actually see the progression of what's happening down there. And like now that we're back on the growing journey, like and the birds are
Mm-hmm.
coming back and everything, it's like, oh right, hopeful. Like it's hope is definitely the word I feel when I walk down there.
There's something that's like naturally programmed into us in the transition seasons. I feel like fall and
Mm,
spring, and especially spring. I mean, there's been tons of studies about how it's important to practice wonder and practice awe. Like moments of
right,
wonder and awe can lead to more moments of joy and enjoying the everyday. And spring does that
right.
hands down, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel a sense of wonder and awe when you see the first crocus come up. You feel a sense of wonder and awe when you see the birds returning,
Mm-hmm.
when the air smells different because the grass is pollinating or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And like you become more in tune with your five senses. And then that leads to you being in tune with yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
feeling those feelings of wonder and awe can override feelings of worry. So spring is
Mm-hmm.
a very powerful time of year.
Yeah, even like Gertie, like there's like this one part of the path that like opens up where you can actually kind of look at the ducks. And when in the winter we did like we don't even really take that way because there isn't really going to be the ducks there. But there was ducks there this week, and like Gertie went and
Cool.
like she just chills, and like you can tell she's just watching them swim back and forth, and she's just like she's hypnotized by the ducks and loves it. And like she's a little bit not an aggressive dog, but she's got opinions. But around the
Mm-hmm.
ducks, she's just like, put
Chill.
me here forever. Like I will sit here and watch the ducks.
Because she's in a state of wonder and awe
Yeah,
looking at those
yeah,
ducks, right? How
yeah,
cool is that?
yeah.
If you're listening to us from a warm climate, everybody, maybe you don't understand what we're talking about. Uh, I'm sure there is lots of wonder and awe that happens in warm climates as
Mm-hmm.
well. My sister moved to Australia. She's been there for, I think, 12 years now. And she when she first moved there within the first few years, she did say she did miss the changes in the seasons because
Right.
it's like built-in programming for us to take a moment to either restart, refresh, whether it's fall or
Mm,
spring, get out different clothes, put away your winter clothes, get out your spring. Like there's just this
mm-hmm.
built-in kind of structure of programming. And I think changes in the seasons can be good for our mental and our emotional health and our
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. You've brought up like you suffer from SAD, and like I suffer from seasonal allergies. Like my springtime allergies are brutal, but I still don't care. I'm still like, yay, pretty.
Yeah, me too. I have
Like,
seasonal allergies too. I'm like, bring it on,
yeah,
reactant, like bring
yeah,
on the,
yeah.
antihistamine. It's
Yeah, we're
fine.
so lucky to have non-drowsy
Yeah.
antihistamines as adults because they were not available when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I was gonna say like I did see this really cool thing though, where like in some warmer climates, because they don't like what happens here in Canada is because everything freezes over and then everything rains, there's kind of this built-in cleaning of like all the
Mm,
dirt and grime and grossness. But in some other like countries, they literally have to water the streets. Like they have to like get out hoses and like water the streets just to get them
interesting.
cooler, just to get the dust off, just to and like we just have that naturally built in, and aren't we lucky? Like,
We are
yeah,
so lucky. Spring is in the air,
yeah,
everyone. Here, anyways.
yeah. What about you? What is your cause for applause this week?
Okay, well, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I go for a walk every day, and I talk about it a lot on this podcast. And I live right beside a park, but the park is a hill basically,
Mm,
and it's a big steep hill, and my apartment building's on the top of the hill. So at the end of the walk, I always walk up this hill, like the grass, this hill of grass. And yesterday I went on my walk and I walked up the hill and I just kept walking. And then I got home and I was like, didn't bother me. And that's the first time since I had my surgery a year ago that I fit enough to get up that hill without being like, oh. So
mm,
I get in the habit of saying to myself whenever I do the hill, saying, I did it, just to convince
yeah.
myself, right? To talk to my brain. And I got up and I kept walking and I wasn't out of breath and I wasn't dying. So I'm pretty proud of that I built my fitness back up. The hill is one of the tests.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, or one of the like touchstones I was trying to get to,
Yeah.
maybe.
Especially
Yeah.
because it's like at the end of your walk, right? Like
Hmm.
it's the last part. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that's my cause for applause. I
Hmm.
walked up a hill. Yay.
Yeah. And then this is where we put up that song, the Kate Bush song that you remember how that song became really popular again last year because of Stranger Things?
Oh yeah, running up that
Running up the
hill.
hill. Yeah. This is where we would put that sound cue if we had any kind of royalties.
All right. Should we do some sharing?
Yes.
Who should go first today? I can't remember.
Mm, you know what? How about you go first today?
All right, I'm
Yeah.
cool with going first today.
Yay.
I have something that I want to let go of in order to move forward. Here it is. I have a pattern in my life that I've become aware of the past couple of years as I reflect on my past and the growth that I've done. I have a pattern in my life of holding on to relationships for too long. It could be any kind of relationship. It could be romantic relationship, friendship, relationship with the team, relationship with a group of people. It could even be a relationship with something like food or money. But I have this habit of holding on to relationships too long and staying in them until they turn sour, and then not knowing when to exit gracefully or exit on top. You know, some athletes, for example, professional athletes, they'll retire when they're on top, or other ones will retire after their prime. I'm like, I need to learn how to retire at my prime or retire on the top. And the reason that I feel like that's something I need to let go of, staying in relationships too long, because when I stay in the relationships too long and they go sour, I'm staying in there from nostalgia or from the sense of needing it to work or the fairy tale story. But the consequences of holding on to this pattern is I end up burning bridges, getting sour or angry within myself, and maybe even feeling like a victim. But what I should be doing is acknowledging that relationships evolve and change, and that's okay. Life isn't static, and we should appreciate the moments in time that are fantastic in these fairy tale moments, but that they change. They're not going to stay static. And when I can do that, then I don't tarnish the good memories that came from that relationship. When I stay in a relationship for too long until it goes sour, it tarnishes the good memories. And I would like to remember the good memories without feeling sour about it. So it's definitely a pattern that I've had in my life. kind of in all of the types of relationships that I have that I am working on letting go of. I do regret staying in quite a few relationships in my past too long, staying with certain sports teams for too long, staying in romantic relationships for too long, staying in friendships for too long. And I'm really working on being more self-aware, letting that go so that I can move forward and change the pattern. I did everything I could do in the moment. When I was doing those patterns, I didn't have the self awareness that I have now to be able to explore my own human behavior. So I did everything that I could in that moment because I didn't have the tools that I have now. And that's okay. And I'm growing. So today I'm letting go of the regret I feel about those things. And my hope is that I can revisit the good memories from many of those relationships and that let those memories come to the top instead of the soured memories.
Do you want to unpack this a little bit? Do you want feedback? Did you just kind of want to put it out there? What are
Yeah, you can give me
you looking
feedback.
for today? Okay, so of course, my super selfish part goes to, when is she going to cut me out? So, but I do think there's definitely the one thing that like really stood out to me without being super insecure about it, is this idea of like fearing fearing the failure element, I guess. Like you want to stay in the story, like you want to stay in the story, you want to stay in the
Mhm.
legacy, you want to, but like
Mhm.
what about your own personal legacy? What about, making decisions that are best for you and things like that. So,
That's exactly it. There's like
mhm,
this idealism in the story. And in the past, I have what you just said. I've wanted to stay in the story of the relationship or the idealism of the relationship to the
mhm,
detriment of myself.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's tough. I'd be really curious to what you think Christian would say about this
Oh yeah,
regret.
like I'm not talking about me and Christian at all, right?
Yeah, of
We've been
course.
together for almost 20 years now, married
Yeah.
for our 17th wedding anniversary is this summer. I'm talking about, yeah, that's what I mean. Like I'm not just talking about like romantic relationships,
Mhm.
but there's friendships that I've stayed in too long, or people are saying to
Yeah.
me, "Why are you still friends with that person?
Right.
They're taking advantage of you or they're not treating you kindly." And I
Mm,
think we do this with things that are really long standing. If things that are long standing and it still feels good, great.
right.
But I've always had this idealist, like, oh, I want to be the best, still my best friend from elementary school kind of thing.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
um, I actually had to let one of those relationships go in the past couple of years. It got sour. Like I realized
Right.
that that person wasn't supporting me. I called them in a moment of extreme duress and got
Mhm.
totally ignored for like 2 months.
Oh, that's
And I
too
realized,
bad.
wait a minute, I'm giving so much to this relationship and I'm actually not getting anything out of it. But I have this idealized
Mhm.
idea of what this friendship is.
Right, right.
And I've done it with, I did it at work.
Right.
You know, I know I talk a lot about my burnout at work, everyone, but it was a big trauma in my life.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning how to talk about it from a place of, I learned from this, but I shouldn't
Mhm.
have stayed in that job as long as I did.
Right.
Right? I should have walked away a lot sooner before the burnout, but
Mhm.
I let
Mhm.
that work take advantage of me, right? I've done it with that. Or how about this one, like relationships with food? Has anybody ever stayed on a
Mhm.
diet that was unhealthy for too long? Because you've this
Right.
idealized idea of like, if I eat this way, it's gonna work, even though it's not, I'm not getting enough nutrition or whatever, right?
Right.
Like when I talk about relationships, I don't just mean relationships with people. And I mean, my big
Mhm.
examples are that I believe everything we do in life is a relationship, right? I have a
Mhm.
relationship with myself, I have a relationship with people, I have a relationship with food, I have a relationship with money, I have a relationship with sleep. Knowing when to reframe those relationships. So I'm not saying walk away, and some of them you
Yeah.
do walk away from, but knowing when to reframe them, right? Like this was a relationship in my past. There's a lot of great memories there, but we've changed as people. If I run into you and I see you, we'll share in those memories, but it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be a long-standing relationship. Or
Right.
I can reframe my relationship with myself. I can
Mhm.
reframe my relationship with food, my relationship with money,
Yeah.
knowing when to reframe them when they become sour or unhealthy. I've done a lot of work on myself in the past 10 years,
Yeah.
and I really do have a habit of staying in relationships for too long.
What would you think the signs are that it's about to turn sour?
Anger,
Right.
resentment. You start to get angry about things. You might start to get petty about things. There might be
Mm,
drama arising. You
right.
start to kind of ruminate in those things, in that drama or that anger or that resentment, maybe
Mm-hmm.
ruminating or being obsessive about things. You find yourself wanting to be angry in the relationship, or maybe like
Mm,
the other signs are, um, I don't feel good about myself,
right.
to
Yeah.
the detriment of like, you realize like, if we're talking about a relationship with other people, like interpersonal relationships, there's giving and receiving. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
always need to be 50-50, but it needs to balance out over the long run. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I've been in this relationship and literally for the past 5 years, it's been 80-20 or 90-10,
Right.
and I've been giving and not receiving, like, if I have a friend that lives in a different city and I realize I'm always driving to their place and they're never making the effort to come see me, like,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't feel great.
Right. Right.
Or
Uh,
like, they're always calling me in a panic time of need and I put time aside, but then when I call them in a panic time of need and they don't put aside time to be there for me, like, there's the emotional giving and receiving, there's physical giving and receiving, there's a lot, but
mm-hmm.
in my humble opinion, it comes down to giving and receiving, and there needs to be a balance of both energetic giving and receiving. And again, balance doesn't necessarily mean 50-50, but it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
balanced.
Right. Yeah, I hear that
And I mean,
completely.
even for things like, for example, like, to say like, this is an amazing company and I want to work for it, but
Mm-hmm.
then the reality is the culture within that company actually isn't that great. But there's
Right.
always the idealized fairy tale, and I can easily get sucked into that idealized fairy tale, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you think there's any room for taking a break and coming back to those relationships, or is it just over?
Sure. That's a skill I need to learn too, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a fear in, if I take a break, I won't be welcomed back in.
Mm-hmm.
So if I take a break, I've lost it forever. Or if I leave, I've lost it forever and I won't have permission to come back in to be part of the
Mm-hmm.
community or the connection or whatever it is. But yeah, great point, Shadow. Yes. And
I'm
that
just
could be part
curious.
of
Yeah.
disrupting the pattern. I think that fear is why I hold on to things for too long when they are sour.
Right. Right.
If I take a break from this, I can never get it back. So it's better to have
Mm-hmm.
this the way it is now than to not have it at all.
Right. Until, eventually it is easier to just not have it at all.
Yeah, until the
But like
anger
that's
builds
too
up and
bad
the
because
like,
like maybe something could have been improved along the way, or like those initial
right.
warning signs. Like
Yeah.
when you first start feeling that trickle of warning sign, is that a time to like stop and go, oh wait, is that thing happening again? And then like, because
Yeah, I
I don't
was
know.
definitely an avoider. And so again, I've been on a huge journey of self-awareness. Part
Mm-hmm.
of that is paying attention to the warning signs, not avoiding the conflict that comes with the warning signs, trying to work through them to see if it's fixable, or you're right,
Mm-hmm.
taking a break and looking after myself,
Yep.
giving to myself instead of giving to everybody else.
Hmm.
Right.
And also just to check in on perception. So again, bringing it back to, I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet like a month ago, and I almost didn't bring it up to my husband because I knew it was going to cause something. I knew it. Like I knew, and I was like, oh, I should just not bring this up. And then I kind of stewed on it for a while, and then I finally did bring it up. But I made sure to bring it up in a very like, oh, we're just chatting. Like I want to bring up some, and I even said I want to bring up something, but it's not a judgment. It's just like a very interesting thing I read online. And he's like, okay, yeah, like let's talk about it. And I was like, okay, do you know that in most couples, both people feel like they do 60% of the work?
Oh, interesting stat. I think that's probably true.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's not mathematically possible. It's clearly not. Like, it's clearly not mathematically possible that you're both doing 60%. So, where does that perception come from? Does it come
Ego.
from overvaluing our own contributions and undervaluing our partners? Does it come from just like there's so much to fucking do that like you just don't
Mm.
even know? Um, so, and because like, and then like when, and Ben like just kind of looked at me, he's like, well, do you think you do 60%? I was like, do you think you do 60%? And both of us just went, huh, how interesting.
I think what
And
you
like,
did was good, was bringing it
yeah.
up, like, and analyzing it, because what can happen then is the festering, right? The
Mm-hmm.
stewing in it, the
Mm-hmm.
festering. Well, I do more than you. And I
Yeah.
think the other thing too, in some relationships, let's say romantic relationships, but I think,
Mm-hmm.
there, I have learned to look at the world and look at things like contribution. I've really shifted my perspective on what contribution is. There can be
Mm-hmm.
monetary contribution, there can be sweat equity, like
Yeah.
there can be energetic contributions. Like
Mm-hmm.
what you give isn't necessarily tangible, right?
Right.
So uh, I feel like I clean up the house way more than you do,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then maybe that person is contributing more to my, this is a total hypothetical, by the way, I'm
Sure.
not talking about my husband at all, but maybe that person that you're living with is like, sure, maybe you do clean up more, but they maybe are supporting your emotional health a lot more than you
Mm.
think, and that's taking a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy out of them to
Right.
support your emotional health, right? So
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what that 60-40 or 50-50 or whatever it is, but
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging all the giving and all the receiving,
Yeah.
all the contributions. And I think we tend to have, I think it's human nature to sway to contribution or the tangible things, cleaning
Mm-hmm.
up, financial, like the tangible things that you can be like evidence based.
Yeah, totally.
I did this action, or
Yeah.
I did provided this tangible thing that you can touch and pick up and feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there are other types of contribution.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we actually got into that when we talked about it too, which was interesting because we just started, yeah, because like, yeah, and I'm really happy that I'm in a partnership where like we can talk about those things without them turning into big like, well, I do 60% and you do 40. No, you do.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, then it just gets petty and you don't get
yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
will say like that has been a change for us. Like I do think there was a time where like we were coming up with like chore charts to make sure that like each of us did, however, like our percent or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like
That's
why?
exhausting.
It's
It's
exhausting, but it like
exhausting.
it's something again, like you're saying, tangible. It helps us like justify our feelings instead of just feeling our feelings, right? Like we
Yeah,
want it,
it's like
yeah.
here's the evidence, so I'm right, righteous, and you're
Mhm.
wrong.
Mhm.
Versus, I mean, I think a healthy relationship is, it's not always going to be 50-50, and you're
Yeah.
always like kind of evolving around it. Sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 50-50,
Mhm.
sometimes it's 70-30, like depending
Yeah.
on what's going on, but that it's constantly changing based on what's going on. And that,
Mhm.
I mean, I think when, okay, we'll talk romantic here.
Yeah.
I believe, you can disagree with me or not, I think that if you start viewing your partner as a child, as someone that you can control, and you
Mhm.
start getting petty over those little things, you need to start questioning what's going on in your
Yeah.
relationship. Because
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how relationships work. It's not like
Mhm.
when I'm having a bad day, you have to be having a good day, or when I, vice versa.
Mhm.
Like sometimes we
Mhm.
both have a bad day and
Yeah.
sometimes we both have a good day,
Totally.
right? It's not black and white. It's
Mhm.
not, right? And so, I mean, communication.
Yeah, yeah. And so like I do think like even with like energy exchanges with friends, like sometimes I think sometimes I think I'm dropping the ball or like I'll even say, "Hey, like I haven't been responding much, but I'm just so tired or overwhelmed." And
Mhm.
it's not that I'm mad at you. I just have so much going on. But like sometimes I don't make sure to send that message and then I worry that they're thinking, "Oh, she's mad at me," and I'm not. I'm
But in the
blown
moment when
out.
you worry, you probably will end up sending the message.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
True.
like to have those are relationships you want to hang on to too. Like I'm the same
Mhm.
way. Like if I'm feeling a lot of anxiety or something, I'll totally like not check in on my friends and ignore them, but then
Yeah.
they'll eventually be like, oh, we haven't heard from you in a while, is everything okay?
Right.
Like, oh, I think I know this pattern in you, Victoria, can you
Right.
please respond
Right.
to this email, please,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
respond to
yeah.
this text message? Like, I'm
Mhm.
calling you out on it.
Yeah.
But again, those are the ones I want to stay in. Like if I'm in relationships
Mhm.
where I feel like I'm constantly checking in with the other person, people, group, whatever it is, and then I stop checking in and they don't check in on me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and even maybe part of the regret here is like I regret setting up relationships that way too in the beginning of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you need to disrupt, I need to disrupt it sometimes. Like, oh, maybe part of this is my fault that I set up the relationship where I'm constantly
Sure.
giving. And then when I want to, I actually need it to change. So I need to
Mm-hmm.
be a lot better at the beginnings of relationships when relationships are forming to say, well, these are my needs and
Yeah.
to feel confident enough to say no. You know, when you have like a new friendship and they
Yeah.
call you to go out for dinner and you don't want to say you can't, you actually can't, but you're like, I don't want to say no. What if they never call me again to go
Yeah.
out for dinner and then the
Yeah.
friendship
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen, right? Like those sorts of things. That happens
Mm-hmm.
at the end of relationships too,
Totally.
right? I don't
Yeah.
want to say no or whatever. So yeah, I'm really I'm learning about this pattern and I think I'm disrupting it and breaking it. And part
Mm-hmm.
of that is talking about it today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but this definitely has been a big part of my growth because
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say um I'm I've said this before, I'm a recovering pushover. And
Right.
like by being a pushover, I never set myself up to actually have healthy relationships that were balanced and aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
ended up feeling angry, petty, used, taken advantage of at the end of many of those relationships.
Right.
The reality is there's a lot of really good memories in those relationships and they're tarnished. And I want to get to a place
Mm-hmm.
where I can remember the good memories in the ones in the past that did end sourly, but to remember those good memories and not feel the guilt and shame that if I ran into someone on the street, they're going to automatically be angry at me because it got sour or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
They might not even remember the ending of the relationship the way
Mm-hmm.
that I
True.
do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
So,
there's always like, there's always that middle ground. Like there's three versions of every story.
mhm.
Your version, their version, the truth.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, perception's huge. But yeah, what a great share. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you ready
Again,
for your share?
yeah, I'm fine.
Let's do it.
Excellent. I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret my roller coaster relationship with exercise. You may recall in a previous regret that one of my goals has been to be nicer to others. However, one of my legacy goals is to be nicer to myself. As I've stopped using negative self talk to motivate myself, I completely disengaged from exercise. Exercise, in my mind, was only means to an end. It was a way to punish myself for eating what I thought was too much. It was a way to prove that I wasn't like those other fatties. It was a way to earn respect. Once I stopped being so mean to myself, I didn't want to exercise at all anymore. It's easy to understand how that happened though. Like I was using it as a punishment and I lost sight of all the benefits of exercise. And then when I tried to get back into it, I was fearful. Not just of the exercise, it's like being difficult, but like also bringing that voice back to the forefront and like needing to rely on that mean version of myself in order to push myself. The consequences I am missing out on due to holding on to this regret are that I have become deconditioned. This added more anxiety to getting back into a regular exercise routine, which led to more avoidance, which led to more anxiety. I've done everything I can with the tools I had at the time, and that's okay. That is who I was then, and I have grown in so many ways. I'm currently in an exercise rehab program and recently learned about the anxiety breathlessness cycle. It was so refreshing to know that I'm not alone in this and I currently have an excellent team of people helping me to gently get back into exercise without hurting myself or without overexerting myself, but with the right amount of push. I'm relieved that I'm relieved because I am capable of using positive self-talk to motivate myself in other areas. So I hope that can start being part of this as well. And I know that I am worthy of feeling great.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
you want feedback or you just want to be heard?
Yeah, we can do some feedback on this one.
Yeah, just like a couple little quick ones is
Yeah, great.
um the first thing I want to point out is what you just said is like you already have the skill of positive self-talk.
Mhm.
So you can easily translate it over
Yeah.
because you have the skill.
Hmm.
you know how to do it. So I just want to like cause for applause that a little bit
Right.
that you acknowledged it and just acknowledge it within yourself.
Hmm.
I really like this term. I've never heard it before. Legacy goal. Where did that come
Oh,
from?
it came from this very program. Like our first week, we had to come up with like short, medium, and long-term goals. But instead of long-term, the person running it was like, I want you to think of your legacy goals because you're only going to be in this program for 8 weeks, and we're going to be able to hit some of your short and medium ones within those 8 weeks. But we won't be able to like hit your legacy ones, but like legacy are like like the short and mediums are the bricks. So, to like getting to your legacy goals. And yeah, it really reframed all this. Like I've been doing tons of goal setting, like not just in exercise, but in all areas of my life, I've been doing a lot of goal setting. And it's always like short, medium, long, short, medium, long.
Yeah,
Like,
there's like this
like
standard corporate kind of
yeah,
short, medium,
or like,
long, smart
make them a SMART
goals.
goal and all
Yeah.
this other crap that I'm just like over. Cause like I
Yeah, we've talked
just,
about this before. I don't
yeah,
believe in smart goals. I
yeah,
don't actually
totally.
think they work with how our brain works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where like one of my medium goals in this exercise program is that this summer I'm going to a retreat and like I want to be able to participate at the retreat. So I have
Mm.
to like build up my cardio now so that I'm like able to do the things at the retreat. So short term, I have to build up my baseline, so like that all works. But then my legacy goals are like to maybe not need like a thing to like make me exercise, right? Like right now there's like this like okay, I've got a reward at the end of this exercise, and before the award used to be like, oh, I can eat cheesecake if I am on the elliptical for 45 minutes. But like I can eat cheesecake because I fucking want cheesecake. Like I
Yeah,
don't need to earn
exactly.
it. So there's that. But then also like, you know, I and again, I don't want to shame myself for needing it because it is a good thing to have medium goals of like, I'm going to this retreat and then right after that, I'm going to a family reunion. And again, I want to be able to like
I
grab
mean, dangling
firewood.
the carrot is
Yeah.
like a really effective way to get the brain to take action. We actually need
Hmm.
it.
Yeah. And then, yeah. And then one of my legacy goals is to like exercise for the fucking hell of it, not to participate in some other thing where other people could maybe judge me for it. Like,
Could I even say exercise for the joy of it?
ooh, I do like that. Yeah, I'm gonna pull
Because
out
it can
my,
be joyful, right? I think
yeah.
I don't remember we talked about this before, but deep work doesn't have to be hard work. It can be joyful.
Mm-hmm.
Like joy can be part of the equation here. Fun
Yeah.
can be part of the equation here, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's really cool. I love words and how words work in the
Yeah.
human brain. We've talked about the wonder words before and those sorts of things. I love changing it to a legacy because legacy kind of gives you a sense that you are invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying to yourself, I'm investing in this. This is my legacy and I'm
Yeah.
investing in it and it's going to leave something powerful behind
Mm-hmm.
too. So
Mm-hmm.
I super love that. Okay, I
Yeah.
just have like one
Sure.
curate more question, it's
Yeah.
deeper question, but you're talking about like exercise as punishment and then exercise as a way to earn respect.
Mm-hmm.
Respect from who?
Like everyone who judges me for being plus size.
Is it also respect from yourself?
It was a bit of that, but it was mostly external pressure. It was
Okay.
mostly like if I was at work, because again, we used to work in offices, right? We all work from home now. But like I always could feel eyes on me that I'm like bigger than all the other girls in
Mm-hmm.
the office and stuff. But if I had my gym bag with me, then I kind of like got a pass. Or like you kind of get like, and again, that's like them not wanting to worry. That's all this other stuff. And that everyone has their own stuff. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying to blame anyone for the way they put their own judgments out there or whatever. Um, but also it's like this idea like if I'm on the TTC and I have a gym bag, that's different than being on the TTC with like a big purse and stuff like that. So like, yeah.
Even though you might have your running shoes and workout clothes inside your big purse.
Oh, totally. Oh yeah, no, it was all, and I mean I did like enjoy the exercise, and like to bring it back to another regret, like I had a lot of rage, so it would help me kind of channel all
Yeah.
that. But like as soon as I started being nicer to myself, I was like, well, why am I doing this? Because exercise never really felt joyful. It just felt like this way of like I have to do it, and I have to convince myself to do it, and I have to like angrily do it. Like there was never any joy in it.
I think
So
this is like really key. Let's say almost all of the population, to be honest with you.
right.
Like we've talked before about the societal expectation, preconditioning in our brains about body size,
Mhm.
body type, what is strong, what isn't, all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
When you said punishment, it reminded me of this quote. I don't know if you've ever heard it.
Mm.
Exercise is a celebration of what your body can do, not a
Mm.
punishment for what you ate.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard
And
it, but
I
I
I really love that quote. I forgot about it actually until you said that,
Mhm.
because I definitely think this idea of exercise as punishment or exercise as a means to get you to almost an unrealistic goal or a
Mhm.
goal is why can't exercise just be to reset your mindset or reframe it
Mhm.
around um joy. Like I
Mhm.
haven't moved my body in a couple hours. I want to move my body. It feels
Right.
good to move my body. And I think again, back to the balance conversation, there's balance.
Mhm.
80% of the time, I want to feel joyful about my exercise and not be thinking, I'm doing this run because I'm trying to lose weight.
Right.
Right. But I mean, there's probably 20% of the time you should, like 20% of the
Mhm.
time, there should be a little bit of pressure there of like, I need to keep moving my body because I want to age well and I want
Mhm.
to be healthy, and exercising is part of that. I mean, there should still be a small piece of that as motivation, I think,
Right.
because health should be your motivation,
Mhm.
right? Or and maybe 5% of it is I want to fit into this dress for this party. That's fine. But
Yeah.
like, what is the balance? And by balance, I don't mean 50-50. Like, what's the
Mhm.
balance of exercise for joy of movement? Or what's the ratio, I guess is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
Ratio of exercise for joy of movement to ratio of exercise for health to vanity. And it's okay to be
Oh,
vain
sure.
sometimes and want to
Yeah.
look good and feel good, because when you look good you feel good, it's fine.
Mhm.
But what is that number for you? And I hope that the balance for everybody out there, and I think many of us, myself included in my past, have been skewed where like the ratio is 80% I'm doing this because I want to look like the skinny model to
Mhm.
20% health to 5% joy
Right.
versus 80% joyful moving because it feels good to move my, like, we're recording
Mhm.
this, I'm going to get up because I know my legs are going to want to move, and
Right.
I'm probably going to go do a walk in the sun after this, and that's joyful for me, and the only reason I'm doing it is not to lose weight, is it's because I like moving my
Mhm.
body, right? I
Mhm.
like lifting heavy weights, it makes me
Right.
feel strong. Yes, right. So it leads me to building my muscles even more. But in the moment when I'm lifting the heavy weights, it's not about building the muscles more. I'm like, yeah, I feel strong because I just
Right.
lifted that, right? Like there's a
Yeah, amazing.
joy in that. So like
Mhm.
reframing, reprogramming, resetting what the ratio of the reason behind the action of moving your body is.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and again, I think it's okay that I took like basically like 2 full years off from exercise, maybe more, as I kind of worked out my mental stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Because like I just couldn't see a positive, like I had treated exercise as this negative thing for so long that like I couldn't bring it back in.
It would have been too
Um,
detrimental if you
yeah.
forced yourself to do it before you were ready.
Totally. And
Yeah.
now I'm
Okay.
ready because, and but like it was interesting, like in the program, like we were talking about anxiety breathlessness cycle and how like we end up becoming so deconditioned to exercise that we are so scared of being breathless so that we
Mm.
don't like do it because we don't want to like become breathless. But like in doing that, we never get a chance to safely practice breathlessness.
Ooh,
So like
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was really curious to me too, and how like, so then we just avoid it. We avoid, 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 avoid until oh my gosh, I can't breathe, and then like you have to have some kind of medical intervention, right? And I was like, as they were going through this slide, I was like, oh, I thought it was just me. Like I thought I just like
Aha
gave up on
moment.
exercise and I'm like this lazy bum. And you see again, the negative self-talk comes to the forefront right away. And
Would
even
you
when I
say,
was
sorry.
no, even when I was doing like the intake for this program, there was a couple times where they were even like, "Do you think you can go a little faster during this?" And it wasn't like a you have to go faster. It was like just like a your own self
Hmm.
stuff. And I'm like, I think I could, but I'm scared. And I was honest with them. I was like, if I go faster during this part of this exercise, I'm going to be scared. And they're like, okay, then don't go any faster because then like you're gonna just stop. Like if you get scared, you're gonna stop, kind of thing. And again, I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed to admit that in the intake. But then there's like a whole like slide and lecture devoted to that exact feeling that is clearly in this slide deck from probably 5 years ago. Like it's not like they added this just for
Hmm.
me. Like it's a generic 8 week program that they run multiple times a year. And here I was thinking, oh, it's just me. I'm so embarrassed. Like I start working out and then I get flustered and then I don't want to do it. And, and I got all these fearful reactions inside of me. And they were like, to them, it was like, yeah, no shit.
That's normal.
Like,
Actually, I want to point out to invalidate you a little bit.
yeah.
I think a lot of people wouldn't be honest and say they were scared. And
Yeah.
you said, "Oh, I'm scared." I think a lot of people would be like, "Yeah, I could do it," because they're having white coat syndrome or feeling pressure to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the fact that you had a self-awareness enough to say, name your emotion and say, "This is how I'm feeling," I think that's really impressive.
I think I was also like really wanting to be in this program too. Like I really
Yeah.
needed the accountability and the support and the external motivation. And like, I also think that because it's like through a hospital, and not just like through a gym or
Right.
through not that like everything you do with Recreo is great, but I'm like at a position right now where I'm not ready to just jump into some like restart program. Like I need
Yeah.
to do this in a safe enough way that I can trust myself again and then I can add on more. And even like it's week 3 and they've started making the exercises harder, and I'm like, no, I was just getting used to the exercises. But like I do appreciate like every time we're done our little sessions, I'm like, oh, this was great.
You may
So,
find that's where the joy sits.
hmm
When you rise to the challenge,
yeah,
you may find like, oh, okay, there's a little bit
hmm
of joy in there because there's pride in there and there's strength in
right,
there and empowerment in there and all those sorts of things too. The other curious question I was going to
hmm
ask, you're saying like there's this fear of breathlessness. I'm
hmm
curious if there's I'm just in general,
yeah,
is there also a fear of sweating
oh yeah,
for people?
yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
definitely had that fear too. Yeah.
Or like the feeling of sweating too. So
Yeah.
I love like when I teach with my Recreo, there's a few, and my fitness classes are only 15 minutes long because I believe
Mhm.
fitness is about efficiency, not time. And
Mhm.
but I always do a check-in and a check-out whenever I'm teaching classes. Check in, how are you feeling now? Check out at
Mhm.
the end of the 15 or 20-minute class. And the way that I do checkout is tell me one word about how you're feeling, write it in the chat box. All my stuff is online on Zoom.
Mhm.
But then did you breathe hard? So I start with, did you breathe hard? Did you sweat? Did your heart rate increase? Did your breathing increase? And then I ask them, give me one word about how you're feeling. So you're
Mm.
kind of connecting that the word with how you're feeling with my breathing increased, my heart rate increased, my sweating increased. And sometimes I say, did you feel burning or feel oomph if there's some kind of like
Mm.
strength based thing involved?
Right.
And then so then you're able to connect that with like, but wait a minute, it feels good to sweat. It feels good
Right.
to breathe hard. Um,
Yeah.
but I had to like dig deep inside me because I felt joyful about movement for a really long time in my life. So
Mhm.
to find those questions for the check-in and the checkout. But
Mhm.
interesting. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's totally like a legit fear of
Mhm.
breathing hard, fear of sweating, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and another thing I've learned in this program is that for a lot of us, when we do, like we don't address it because we're avoiding it, when we end up being in situations where we do have to be more physically active, like for me, like bringing groceries home. I don't have a
Hmm.
car. So
Right.
like I'm walking the groceries home, and when I come up the stairs, I forget to breathe because I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
focused on just getting to the top of that staircase. And I'm so scared of becoming breathless that I just hold my breath. And again, like I wasn't aware that I was doing that until we were doing again this program, and like they have to constantly remind us to breathe properly, and I'm always like, why are they constantly reminding us of that? And then like they changed up an exercise, and I found I was holding my breath, and I went, oh right.
That is
Like
for sure human nature. So when I
mhm.
was coxing rowing, so again, for those of you who don't know what a rowing coxswain is, a person that sits at the front of the boat and yells and basically is motivating the crew the whole time. And it's not
Mhm.
sitting there yelling stroke. That's not what it is. Um, right.
Yeah,
One of my calls that I would make at least 5 times during a race was breathe.
right.
Literally, I would just say the word breathe. And I
Mhm.
think and when I work one-on-one with training clients, when I have training clients, that's one of the things I actually watch for. I think it's
Mhm.
totally human nature to hold our breath when we're working out. When we're
Yeah,
lifting something heavy, we hold our breath. And like you actually need to breathe out when you're lifting something.
right.
It's like counterintuitive to hold your
Yeah.
breath or vice versa, whatever. Like, um, and, and it's also holding your breath as a form of focusing.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
we can hold our breath when we're focusing or some, I think it's human nature. There's something in our brain is like, I'm focusing on this so hard, I'm going to stop focusing on breathing.
Right.
And then the other thing that I don't know if they said this to you or not too, yawning. So
Hmm.
if I have a client that's yawning a lot when I'm training them, or I see it in classes of people yawning, a lot of the times people might interpret that as like, oh, they're not pushing their body hard enough, or I'm
Mm,
so tired and lazy and I'm in this class. Why am I yawning so much? No, you're yawning because you're probably holding your breath during some of the exercises and your body's trying to compensate for that by making you
right.
yawn. So then I start to look at those students, participants, or the one on one client and be like, where are they holding their breath? And I'm going to start giving more cues about breathing if they're yawning. So like take the guilt away from the yawning. I'm like, oh, that's great that you're yawning. It means that you need oxygen. So let's
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
out why
yeah.
you're yawning because you're holding your breath somewhere.
Hmm. We,
Interesting.
yeah, we haven't talked about that, but we do talk about how like your exhale should be twice as long as your inhale, and like that's something that's like really,
Oh
like I'm
man, I
really
struggle
struggling
with
with.
that just like regularly sitting doing nothing, man.
And like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I can't do that and do the exercise at the same time. Something short
Mm-hmm.
circuits in my brain. I'm like, nope, no, I just got to go back to breathing how I was breathing because like if I try to do that and the exercise, like it's too much at once. But I like, I am finding times to make sure I'm practicing that breathing like before bed and all this other stuff. And again, there's like a lot of just like a very interesting thing that came up was that, there's the three types of exercise, right? There's like stretching, cardio, and strengthening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those are the three. In this program, they've introduced a fourth form, which is breathing, and how
Ooh,
it
I like
requires training,
that.
and it requires like you need to like do your homework with it, and you have to like practice belly breathing. And I'm like, belly breathing through the nose? How am I like? And I realized I do a lot of breathing in my
Mm-hmm.
chest. I do a lot of living in my chest. I don't send that air all the way down, and that could be why I'm always feeling so fearful around exercise. And not that I can fix that overnight, but
No, but you can be consistent in your practice and eventually it will become natural. It's an excellent point. I
mhm,
challenge you listeners to do this test at home. Many of us aren't breathing deeply. Breath work is a whole thing, right? There's a whole area in wellness work
mhm,
now that's just around breath works. And I think it's great that this mainstream hospital type program is talking about breath work too.
yeah,
The majority of us are actually hyperventilating most of the time, like which is when you're breathing
mhm,
shallow most of the time, you're hyperventilating. So I challenge you to do it there, listeners. Give yourself a little test. Set a timer for a minute. So you're not looking at the timer. Set a timer to go off and beep after a minute. Just count how many
mhm,
breaths you take in that minute. So one inhale, one exhale counts as one breath.
right,
And we're supposed to be taking I could be getting this wrong. We might have to fact check it, but I think it's between 8 to 16 breaths a minute. is the healthy range. If you're over
Okay.
16, you're getting into that hyperventilation, and
Hmm.
also it's a sign that you're shallow breathing all the time. So just set a timer for a minute and check on your breathing and see how many breaths you're taking a minute. And it's information for you to say, oh, I need to take moments throughout my day to retrain myself to take those deep breaths,
Mm.
right? Because when we're
Hmm.
shallow breathing, we're actually we're holding on to more carbon dioxide in our body, and we want more oxygen. We know that, right? But thanks for bringing it up, Shadoe. Man, breath is so
Hmm.
interesting. And I mean, segue. We always
Yeah.
finish with 3 breaths here on the Letting Go podcast.
Ah,
But
what?
before we go into that breath, is there anything
Yeah.
else that you want to say about it? Because thank you for that, because you brought up some points that I think a lot of people don't verbalize, that might think in their head and not verbalize. And
Mm.
again, that's the point of what we're
Right.
doing here, so that we recognize
Yeah.
human nature is human nature, and we all have similar thoughts about many things. And there's no shame in that, or regret or guilt in it. Part of the human
Hmm.
condition, everyone. So is there anything else you want to say?
I just, if you're struggling with like any part of fitness, don't avoid the doctor because I definitely did that. And I interrupted it at a good time and I'm getting the help I needed now, but I just think this could have been such a better program for me even like 2 years ago. So yeah, that's the only thing I would add is like, and again, I'm not trying to shame myself for not taking action sooner or anything like that, because I did have to go through a mental health journey before I came back to
Mm-hmm.
my physical health. But yeah, because there was like, I mean, it's not like I never exercised. Like I totally still had like real intense exercise programs before. And yes, it was rooted in being mean to myself, but is that it's not terrible. And if you're still in that space where you're using negative self-talk to motivate yourself, like it's fine. We do it, but just know that it might come to bite
I
you
literally like
later.
feel the energy shift in you as we've had this conversation
Hmm.
around it. Like,
Right.
and I've known you for a while now, and to the way you've been
Hmm.
talking about this program that you're in, I feel like more joy and excitement around it, that you're like wanting to
Hmm.
do it. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that for you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for sharing. And I think it's again, a really important message. And this is what we're just trying to, listeners, I hope you connect with what we're saying, and it helps you feel like you're not alone either, wherever you are on your physical activity journey or whatever, emotional health journey or whatever it is to know
Hmm.
that there's always people that you can connect to that are feeling the same way you're feeling.
Hmm.
Yeah. And support. There's always supports out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Shadoe. I appreciate
Thank you
you.
for listening.
Shall we do our 3 deep breaths?
Yes, let's.
All right, everybody, come on to the front edge of your chair. Put your feet flat on the floor. Again, if you're driving or doing something where you can't do the 3 deep breaths with your eyes closed, please don't. Please be safe. But put your feet flat on the floor and just acknowledge the feeling of your feet, those points of contact in your feet on the floor, on the ground. And know that your breath comes from deep down within, all the way down to where you're grounded. And acknowledge that the earth is always holding on to you. Gravity will not let you float away, and your feet are that connection to ground you. Feel those points of contact in your feet. And take one hand and put it on your heart if you want, or your chest, and another hand on your belly. And on this first breath, we're going to breathe in. And as you're breathing in, I want you to imagine you're pulling that breath from your feet all the way up through your body to give you a nice grounded, deep breath. So let's breathe in on our first breath. And on the exhale, I want you to say to yourself, oh, I choose to release pressure and expectation. Let's take another deep breath in through our belly. And on your exhale, I relieve my regrets. My past does not define me. And on this last breath, I choose to be kind to myself moving forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As always, thank you, Shadoe, for being open and honest and vulnerable for me and for creating a safe space for me to do the same and share our stories. We hope that they help you out there, listeners, and we appreciate your feedback. And as always, we appreciate you. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you, hear you next time. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.